Welcome to Top Knot Education, where you get a chapter summary of a classic novel in less time than it takes you to walk to class. Today we'll be talking about Catcher in the Rye. This is the last full-size chapter, chapter 25. Holden heads down to the subway and sleeps on the benches there. He says, quote, "I think I was more depressed than I ever was in my whole life," end quote. He's still falling, and the mix-up/betrayal of Antolini has only made things worse. He does rethink the circumstance, this time exclusively describing Antolini's actions as, quote, padding. He thinks maybe it's a mistake to not go back to Antolini's house. He finds a magazine and reads about people with health problems like bad hormones and cancer. For each condition, he begins to believe that he has that problem. He walks around New York, where Christmas is starting to really take hold. There are trees and decorations everywhere. Holden's mental condition worsens briefly. He begins to have a problem even crossing the street. Here's the quote. "Every time I'd get to the end of the block, I'd make believe I was talking to my brother Allie. I'd say to him, 'Allie, don't let me disappear. Allie, don't let me disappear. Allie, don't let me disappear. Please, Allie.' And then when I'd reach the other side of the street without disappearing, I'd thank him. Then it would all start over again as soon as I got to the next corner." Holden's stress is peaking. He's at his darkest moment, falling so hard he can barely make it across the street. If you've ever read Mark Twain's Huck Finn, it's about a nice kid in an insane world. Huck's world has been turned upside down by the institution of slavery. Everyone that owns slaves in the South is morally bankrupt because of that decision. Huck can't fix the whole South, so, spoiler alert, the book ends with him heading out west to find a place without civilization. Unable to cross the street, Holden makes the same decision. He decides to go out west. Unfortunately for Holden, Huck Finn and The Catcher in the Rye are written almost 100 years apart, and the West is no longer uncivilized. To add to that, he's going to pretend to be a deaf mute so he never has to have a conversation. But even with that plan, we know that he can't escape people, as he's about to learn. He decides to say goodbye to Phoebe, and he gets excited about this horrible Western plan. He heads to her school to leave her a goodbye note, but on the way he notices a curse word written on the wall. Afraid little kids will see it, he scratches it out. He's still trying to be the Catcher in the Rye, protecting kids from the evils of the world. He finds another of the same curse word and tries to scratch it out, but he can't. Here's the quote. "It wouldn't come off. It's hopeless anyway. If you had 1,000,000 years to do it, you couldn't rub out even half the FU signs in the world. It's impossible." This is obviously symbolic. Holden, carrier of snowballs, protector of Ackleys, is a highly sensitive person. It's part of what makes him so charming and also what causes him so much harm. Like Huck Finn, he can't get rid of all the evil in the world. Unlike Huck Finn, there's nowhere to hide from it. So he does an interesting thing. He heads to the museum. Rewatch the video on chapter 16 if you want to know why the museum is so important. For Holden, it's a safe place where he can be a kid and nothing ever changes. No bad things can happen, like Allie's death. Symbolically, he gets to the museum and runs into a boy and his brother, basically previous versions of Holden and Allie. He runs around with the kids a while, but when they go to see the mummies, the kids get too scared and they run off. Holden enters the mummy's tomb by himself. This is actually the climactic moment in the book. It doesn't feel like it if you're not tracking all of the themes, but if you are tracking them, you realize how unbelievably important this moment is. Holden has found a perfect place for himself. He's in a museum where nothing changes, he's alone, and he's among the safety and emptiness of death, an idea he's flirted with throughout the novel. There's even a moment way back in chapter 14 when he describes his favorite biblical character as the guy who lives in the tomb and cuts himself all day, a character that's possessed by demons until Jesus takes the spirits away. Holden has finally found his tomb and his silence and his place that never changes. Unfortunately, he finds something else there as well. Here's the quote. "Then all of a sudden, you'd never guess what I saw on the wall. Another FU. It was written with a red crayon or something right under the glass part of the wall under the stones. That's the whole trouble. You can't ever find a place that's nice and peaceful because there isn't any. You may think there is, but once you get there, when you're not looking, someone will sneak up and write FU right under your nose. Try it sometimes. I think even if I die and they stick me in a cemetery and I have a tombstone and all, it'll say Holden Caulfield on it. And then what year I was born and what year I died, and then right under it, it'll say FU. I'm positive, in fact." In short, in this moment, Holden is realizing there's no escape from the evils of the world, even in a perfect place like this. Not even in death, as it still rains on our tombstones. Then in another incredibly important thing happens. Holden is having stomach problems, so he goes to the bathroom and he falls down. Here's the quote. When I was coming out of the can, right before I got to the door, I sort of passed out. I was lucky though. I mean, I could have killed myself when I hit the floor. But all I did was sort of land on my side. It was a funny thing though. I felt better after I passed out. I really did. My arm sort of hurt from where I fell, but I didn't feel so damn dizzy anymore. If you remember, the last chapter, Antolini said he was worried Holden would fall forever and never land. He called it, quote, the worst kind of fall. Holden has been falling for a while, and in the bathroom, he finally lands. Unlike James Castle, he doesn't die either. It hurts a little bit, but he's otherwise unharmed. Salinger is still playing with the concepts of falling and catching, so this is an important moment. It seems silly that by falling over in a bathroom, Holden has essentially accomplished something he needed to accomplish. He's grown up. The fall is, of course, just symbolic. It's really the advice from Antolini, combined with his own realization that it's impossible to escape the evils of the world, that has moved him into this important mental place. But the change has finally occurred, and we will see it play out in his behavior for the rest of the chapter. He heads outside and is surprised to find Phoebe. She's wearing his hunting hat and carrying her suitcase. All through the novel, Holden has been dying to find someone who cares about him, who can take care of him, who will escape west with him, like he wanted to do with Sally, and here comes young Phoebe to the rescue. If Holden is leaving, she is determined she will leave with him. Holden is still thinking about leaving, and Phoebe refuses to let him go alone. They walk together down to the zoo, and he talks her into riding the carousel, which is probably on the cover of your book, by the way. Holden watches with the other adults while Phoebe rides. He's been pretending to be a little kid for most of the book, but in this moment, after his fall, he's finally ready to grow up. He even has a mature observation about his, quote, job as Catcher in the Rye. Here's the quote. All the kids kept trying to grab for the gold ring, and so was old Phoebe, and I was sort of afraid she'd fall off the goddamn horse, but I didn't say anything or do anything. The thing with kids is, if they want to grab the gold ring, you have to let them do it and not say anything. If they fall off, but it's bad if you say anything to them. Holden can't spend his life scratching out cuss words and protecting kids, mostly because kids eventually have to grow up. They all need to get close to the cliff, and if they do fall, hopefully they land safely like Holden did. Phoebe wants to take another ride on the carousel, but she's afraid Holden will leave. He promises that he's not leaving. He has changed his mind. We get the sense that he will actually educate himself, just as Antolini advised. The world probably won't get any better, but now Holden is more prepared to deal with it. The novel ends happily. Here's one of the final wonderful quotes. Boy, it began to rain like a bastard, in buckets, I swear to God. All the parents and mothers and everybody went over and stood right under the roof of the carousel so they wouldn't get soaked to the skin or anything. But I stuck around on the bench for quite a while. I got pretty soaking wet, especially my neck and my pants. My hunting hat really gave me quite a lot of protection in a way, but I got soaked anyway. I didn't care though. I felt so damn happy all of a sudden. The way old Phoebe kept going around and around, I was damn near bawling. I felt so damn happy, if you want to know the truth. I don't know why. It was just that she looked so damn nice the way she kept going around and around in her blue coat and all. God, I wish she could have been there. That's it. We made it to the end of the book. One more chapter, but it's a tiny one. Get to class.